Today on the Riff, Jeremy and Justin talk about stress. Just knowing we're talking about stress kind of stresses me out. We hope today is helpful. Thanks for listening.
Hello, Riff Nation, and welcome to another episode of The Riff. Justin, did you notice anything different?
Yeah, you just turned it on, man.
I did.
We have a clock that starts, and I'm pretty sure you're on your phone up until that point. And then I thought, does he know the clock's going? And then boom, you came out of the gate.
Yeah, well, like a bull.
Like a
bull. Yeah, just right out of the pen. I'm just trying different podcast voices because I was listening to a podcast recently, and the host said to somebody else, "Man, your voice is perfect for this." And I thought to myself, no one's ever told me that.
No one has ever said anything.
No one's ever said anything to me. And so I thought, well, let me try a different voice. So Riff Nation, it is great to have you with us. And I don't know. I
feel like it's the same voice.
As mine?
That's the same voice, man.
It's not.
It was the same. It was a little bit lower and a little bit slower, but it is the same voice.
Yeah, it's and then I don't even know if you listen to podcasts. That's what people do.
Okay.
Have you listened to Joe Rogan?
I don't.
Have you listened to Marty Solomon?
I do.
Okay. I'm trying to think of the world's most famous podcasts.
I feel like it'd be Joe Rogan, right?
I don't know.
That's like the number one podcast
I've never listened
out
to
there.
it.
I've never listened.
Yeah. We should go on a little journey of what are the top podcasts out there and where would we honestly rank?
I would say close to the top.
And maybe evaluate why, if our content is just as good or better, why aren't we having the same amount of shares, same amount of views? So I think that might be for another episode.
No, it's called The Tipping Point.
Yeah. And all of that to say, that's why I think maybe my voice might be what's holding us back. And I don't want to do that. What are our goals for the podcast, by the way? Do we have goals?
Don't have any.
Is that a problem?
I think so.
I think that might be a problem.
I think that's a problem. Yeah. No, the goals of the podcast is to share little insights, little behind the scene moments.
Yes.
Have a little bit of a more candid experience with you specifically. Which here's the funny thing. Here's the funny thing. People are like, we should do it. You're the same guy on stage as anywhere else. So it's just kind of funny that when people are like, man, I really like to hear Jeremy in other spaces. I was like, you can just call him because it's the same. It's the same guy.
Hello, this is Jeremy. When's the last time you answered a phone when you didn't know who was calling? I've heard you do it.
It depends.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's fine. It depends. If it's spam and I know that it's like a telemarketer, I will pick that up.
I've heard you do that.
I'll put them on speaker.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what we're doing. I'll put them on speaker.
You will keep them hostage.
I do. I try to see how long I can keep them on.
Longest you've ever done.
46, I think. 46 minutes is the longest.
Yeah.
And it was pretty great. I got to talk to 3 different people. It was about solar panels. They were having a dinner.
Wow.
And I made
for or against?
4. They're 4. They're
okay.
going to sell them.
That's fair.
But you would have to go to a dinner to learn about them.
And I was able to make those kind of purchases.
Well, I was able to talk to 3 different people, and we didn't even talk solar. They started it, but I started just talking about what was for dinner that night.
What do they? Is it a tenderloin type of thing?
No, it was more of a buffet, but I was telling them all of my dietary restrictions.
Yeah.
And then they were like, well, we've got a dietitian. So then I got to talk to her.
You're kidding me. Do you think most solar panel companies have dietitians on staff?
Well, I don't think it was a solar panel dietitian. I think it was for the event. And I don't even know if it was a dietitian. I think it was just a general manager.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
Because he did not sound like a dietitian. So,
really?
yeah. So I enjoy those. When's the last time you picked up the phone with somebody that you didn't know?
I think I did it last week, actually. So I like to cruise.
Okay.
Right. So really enjoy it. And I know that Carnival Cruise Lines is headquartered in...
Did you say Carnivore Cruise Lines or Carnival?
Carnival.
Got it.
Carnival. But I would have no problem. If you were naming a cruise line and called it Carnivore, I'm probably in. I have no problem with that because I am one. But Carnival, but it does sound maybe it's sketchy. But anyway, so Carnival, they're headquartered in Miami. And so it's a 3-0 something or other. So if you have a 3-0 something and you call, I'm going to say yes, because it's never happened. But if they said, hey, we're calling, we had this little promo, people who have sailed with us in the past, we wanted to do a drawing and you want a free cruise. I don't want to have that call go unanswered. So
it makes sense.
Never happened.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I answered it. Turns out it wasn't Carnival.
No kidding.
No, it's Corwin Ford.
Oh,
yeah,
bummer.
Yeah. Well, apparently they know my web habits, and I was looking at a Ford Bronco Heritage. Yeah, and they found out. They called me.
That's creepy.
Yep. Yeah, it was creepy.
Yeah.
So I said, no, thank you. Anyway, that's about all the time we have for today.
That's it.
So
that is it.
We do promise that we're not always gonna bore you with important stuff. Sometimes we're going to be able to just hang out with this stuff. But today we are going to talk about the series we've been in.
We're going to talk about it.
Too stressed to be blessed.
Too stressed to be blessed. We're going to give a couple of different handles. I thought it'd be fun to ask you just very fundamental questions. And it might seem like it's well, that's an easy question. But I feel like stress, it impacts everyone.
Yeah.
And I also feel like it impacts everyone over and over and over.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions that I want to walk through is what do you do to get out of it? What are some handles that you have for that? I know that through the series, we were able to just kind of look at stress, look at biblical stories, look at Jesus, look at all of these types of different viewpoints and angles. But today I just want to talk about when you are in a space, you find yourself stressed, what do you do? Because one thing I really dig about you is how you can compartmentalize. Right. And I have seen you with your girls when I know that we've had a stressful week or a stressful situation, and there's, I would say more times than not, you don't bring that stress into that situation. Yeah. You're able just to be fun. You're able to laugh. You're able to, still might bother you, still might be some tension, but it doesn't own the situation. So I just want to walk through a couple of those elements and find out how you handle those elements.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you said earlier is that we all have stress and we all continue to have stress, and that's just it's just going to always be reality, because we're going to face things that demand more of us than what we feel we have in the moment, and whether that's an emotional, whether that's a financial, physical, anytime we have this sense of a realization of a gap between what I feel that I'm bringing to the table and what is required of me, it will produce some stress. Also underlying this, and I've shared this before, but there's some of how I handle stress now is a result of handling it very poorly for a season. So I felt like one of the things that I did really well most of my life was handling stress. I didn't feel like stress bothered me. I had a very optimistic mentality about a lot of things. And so if you would have asked me how stressful are things, I'd be like, I'm not really stressed. My first few years of pastoring, people would be talking to me about challenges, and I am compartmentalized. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I've got a lot of challenges. At that time, there were a lot of financial challenges at North Point. We were trying to come out of a really tough season. Anytime there's a big transition or a sudden transition in church, it could have a big financial impact. And it certainly was the case 12 years ago. And so after crawling out of some of that weight of organizational stress or challenge, and then getting into my first building project as a pastor, not knowing how to really do it, and I didn't lead it well. And then when the results were hitting me I had no clue that building projects would cost more than you budget. And even if you do a great job budgeting, it's just the nature of building projects. And so we didn't have any margin built in, and we weren't coming from a place of margin. So for me, the biggest challenge I was facing was this financial challenge when we were moving into the Joplin campus, that we were overextended and we didn't have the margin to back it up. And so I would be talking about the challenges, and I'd always say when people would ask if that's stressful to me, I'd say, what's interesting is I don't get stressed. And I didn't think I did. I just thought I had heart attacks. And so and I only laugh about it now because it's not right now. But I've told the story how quickly I was able to get some help where the doctor was like, hey, this is actually a head thing, not a heart thing. But if you don't get a hold of it, it will become a heart thing. And that led me to quickly try and figure out, okay, I need a therapist who can help me understand why my mind is so stressed. And so developed a better understanding of how I got there, what I'm processing, why this stress feels so strong, and then some tools to be able to cope with the stress, not to eliminate stress. I often hear in my mind what he said several times is you'll never eliminate anxiety. You're never going to eliminate anxiety. That's not your goal. And trying to make that your goal will cause more anxiety. But what you will be able to do is live with anxiety in a way that it doesn't just paralyze your thought process or interrupt your days. And so that was a game changer for me. So it took me a long time, in my mind, about 6 months to feel like I had predictable stability mentally, in the sense of that I feel like I don't have to be nervous of how I will express anxiety. It took me several months. And that was 8 years ago. All I have to say is, okay, so stress for me, there have been times in the last month where I will be, there was a time right before I was getting up to speak in the last month where I had this gripping thought of anxiety, and where for me it starts coming out in a physical, hypochondriac type of vibe. So that feeling for me was a reminder, hey, there's some heavy things going on right now. Your mind is very busy, and your mind is right now scrambling to try and control something, and your body's feeling it. But I was able to recognize that, acknowledge it, quickly assess, how real of a problem for right now is it, to determine it's not a problem right now. It's a challenge, it'll need my attention, but it doesn't need this attention. And to be able to process it. Where 8 years ago, I'd have been like, oh my word, I forgot to worry about this stuff. And now I'm feeling like, is it my arm? Is it heart? Is it my mind? And it would have interrupted my day. So, that's kind of my reality of stress and anxiety now. It's not something that I notice every week, but I certainly will notice it occasionally, and it doesn't bring a lot of anxiety. I didn't answer how to deal with any of that.
No, I think you did. I think that awareness is the number one element, right? I mean, I think Dan Siegel would say, name it to tame it, right? Jamie uses that a lot in a lot of our coaching.
So walk through that. What is that? How does that, what does that mean? Name it and tame it.
Yeah. If you have that emotion or that feeling coming up over and over and over, that becomes what's the driving factor. And it's not that the emotion is bad. It's not that it's like, whoa, it's you've said this, and I love this example. Like, it's the check engine light. Yeah. Like, that's what it is. It's telling you something's going on. So now we have to take the time, we have to be aware of it, and then we have to truly name what is this? What is going on, right? That's the only way they're going to be able to tame it, is to figure out what that check engine light is actually trying to tell me. And for you, it's trying to tell you, hey, you're stressed out and you feel like you're out of control, and your body right now feels like it's wanting to control something, right? Cool. I'm going to name what just happened, and now I'm going to be able to tame it and understand why I have these impulses or these actions coming out, right? I think that's the key. I don't think I've been a part of that. I know that's a key for me, of like, if I'm not able to name it, if I'm not able to be aware of it, just like you're saying, it spins like crazy, or it builds. One of those two. It'll either spin out or build up. Those are the two things that happens with it. And I think that is the key, is to be aware. So I think you did give a handle there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do feel like, so compartmentalizing, that has played in my favor in this area. There's areas of my life where compartmentalizing doesn't help me. Okay. So whether it's a personality drive, an Enneagram profile, commonality, whatever it might be. But I've always been able to compartmentalize. So where that could be a challenge is I could feel unemotional because I could control my emotional expressions of not letting them come out. Sometimes I actually mute. I'm a very expressive person, but those closest to me could feel that the muted version of my emotions, and so that's not always positive either. So the balance is, okay, just to recognize, hey, this emotion right now, give it full reign to come out, right? Or this emotion isn't helpful for the people around you or around me. So here's some practical things I'll do. When I am frustrated, when I'm stressed, is what I try to do, if it's relational stress, what I try to do is I try to quickly see the other side, race to the other side of the perspective. So, okay, because when I'm stressed relationally, usually I'm right and you're wrong if it's a relational stress, for me at least. Rarely is my anxiety, hey, I disappointed them. And if I feel that I disappointed them, it doesn't bring me a ton of anxiety. It'll be an invitation to, hey, go explain it. And hey, did I? But if I am frustrated because of what someone did or did not do or said and what they might have meant, what I have to do is I have to just think, okay, what did they mean? Okay. And try and get there. And that'll usually just calm me down. If I can just at least visit what I think they might have meant. Then even if I'm like, I don't even think that meant it. I think they deliberately said it this way, sent it this way, did this. Then to be able to say, okay, what's the best way to respond? Is it just to sit down for a little bit and wait, say, okay, hey, my emotions are being louder than they need to. So if my anxiety is because of a person, if it's because of what they didn't do, I'm going to recognize that and say, that's probably not a big deal. I'm not going to try and fill in the gap. If it's because of something they did do, try and understand why, give some options of it just to diffuse my emotion. Or if I do want to talk about it, do it in a way where I'm not adding fuel to it, right? And my personality could quickly add fuel to something because I can do it with something funny. And I could feel like if I can say a zinger to you when I'm having some emotional anxiety and be funny about it, it's a weapon. But that's something, if I look across my life, that's a strength that God's given me, humor. And if I use it in a selfish way, it's really ugly. And some of my most embarrassing moments as a human being have been using a God-given strength in a Jeremy benefited way. And so sometimes in our anxiety, we use our strengths, but we do it in a way that don't benefit us. For example, maybe your strength is you're very productive. Your anxiety forces you to go and do something productive. Well, it looks good. You feel good about it because you're doing something, but the truth is it's not healthy, right? We're being fueled by anxiety.
Talk more about the assumption element.
Okay.
Because I don't do well with this. Have you read the 4 Agreements, Ruiz?
I don't remember.
Toltec Wisdom. So I use that book a lot whenever I'm teaching on communication with any of the team. And his 4 Agreements, like for life, it's a book of Toltec wisdom, and one of those is not to make assumptions. Michael Bungay Stainer also does this of assume positive intent, API. Like if you're going to assume anything, assume that it's positive. Okay. And somehow I never do. So I always start with like a negative bent towards anything, and I have to
like give me an example without using any coworkers' names.
Okay,
especially if it's Jeremy.
No. Let's say Raremy texts me and just says, "Hey man, did you put a cover letter on that fax?" Just a simple question, which is a question that Raremy always asks me.
Yeah, Alvarez.
Always.
Yeah.
And here's my initial thing is like, he's mad. He's super mad. He doesn't like the way I fax things. Gah. And then I just have to name it to tame it. Stop. Hold on. Assume positive intent. He just might actually wonder, hey, did we get that on the top of that fax? Did we get the cover sheets on there, right? Like that's all I'm wondering. It's very positive. That's very something like stupid and simple, but it can do the same thing. I can do it with Jamie. I can do it with my mom and dad. I can do it with my in-laws. Anything that they say, for some reason, I'm always like, you said it too, you fill in gaps with suspicion. right? Like that's just a natural human tendency to do. So how do you?
Well, let me ask one more thing on this. So what's your natural when you feel like, so you're sharing someone is upset, do you naturally fire back and take a jab, or do you like scramble to try and make, to do better? I mean, how do you naturally?
Well, I believe my core emotion is anger. So I immediately get mad and I immediately think, I'm going to show you. And then I immediately think, well, that's not kind. That's not who I want to be. That's not why I want to show up. So there's quite some mental gymnastics. I'm also not patient. So when you add this like boiling anger and impatience, my younger years were not the finest.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things, again,
poor Sparky, your dog, man. They're probably that combo when she's a puppy.
I know.
He. I never
it's
looked.
A he. It's a he. No, you could just ask. You don't have to look.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I've never been a dog guy, so don't know where. I don't even know where to look.
It's kind of a same thing.
It's terrible. Okay, so you know what's interesting though, as we're thinking about this is, there's nobody that I work closer with in a work setting than you, right? And a lot of us feel this way, whether it's a spouse, a partner, a kid, is some of the people who are closest to you, they sometimes feel the most unfiltered reactions from you. We've done that with each other. I'm sure. I don't know that I could think of one specifically in my mind, but so you've probably seen in the last how many years we worked together where I send out a very reactive message to you because between the two of us, we try and touch the entire organization. So half of our organization is you're overseeing. So if I've got one thing that is bringing me anxiety from half the organization, you're my direct line of contact. So how do you recognize? So you've probably got some zingers from me or things that you're like, this is a very immature version of Jeremy throwing something out. How do you handle that? What do you do?
I don't think I did the first couple of years with you because I took all of those elements very like negatively, or I was angry then at your comment where I'm like, it's not my fault. What are you talking about, man? It's not even, I haven't even talked to that person in a week. Like that's not, or I was in a space where I'm very impatient where the flip side would be like, I'll fix it fast. I'll fix it. Don't worry about it, man. I got it. Which is just as unhealthy as, so it just took time for me to understand that you're just being unfiltered where I'm like, that's actually helpful. Right? And if I'm now in a space to where I'm not assuming anything and I'm just literally reading your words and I'm just curious now of, all right, man, what do you need from me on this? Or, all right, how's that sitting with you? Like, what are the questions that I'm asking to you instead of the actions that I want to take? And for my first years, I was definitely action oriented. I'll get it. What do you need, man? I'll get it for you. And now it is, all right, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to really try to figure you out. The Riff is literally one of those things. Like I brought up the Riff because I wanted to mine your mind. Like I'm like, I just want to sit down with you and have a podcast, right? Like there's so many things in your brain that I want to understand that if I'm going to serve in this seat, knowing you the best is going to give me the best ability to do that. So I'm like, I just have to be curious. Yeah. So now when you fire stuff off or you're mad at something or you hit me with something where it's like, hey, this, and this, I always just breathe. And then I'm like, all right, what's he trying to say through this? And what question can I give him that really tries to get to the heart of what he's upset about or seen? And now let's figure out a plan of action. Because I am like, tenacity is my working genius. And I don't even think I have another one. So it's like, that's like, I'm going to get it done, but I got to take a couple steps back and realize. Same thing with Jamie. Like Jamie and we're fairly close. I see her every day. Yeah. And it's the same thing. If she'll fire me a text or say something like about the kids or whatever, it's always, all right, just ask a question. Yeah. Calm down, breathe. What's upsetting you about that, right? Because Jamie always says too, like the thing is never the thing. So the first thing that comes out is usually not what the issue is. There's something deeper there. So it's just curious, question, and then we'll get to it, and then we'll attack it. Because if I attack these things that are coming out, it's just not hitting the actual root of the issue. Right. And we're just going to have it over and over and over and over. So even though it feels fast, right? Yeah. And that's what I love. I love it fast, quick, let's move on. I'm like, it's not how life works. So, yeah.
I think what's helpful for any very important relationship, and again, we can use this at work, we use this at home with the kids, is you don't want to feel like, I don't want to feel like I'm walking on eggshells. But it doesn't give me an excuse just because you're my family member, just because we work closely together. It doesn't give me an excuse to be disrespectful. Doesn't give me an excuse to be cutting. And so what I have to remember in any of my relationships is that not every relationship can handle 100% truth, but you need some that can, and you need to be able to do it in a way that's as kind as possible or as clear as possible. And when you can be as clear as possible without cutting or without being disrespectful, that is a gift because you can save a ton of time and you don't have to dance. And I, with the two of us, I think we got similar personalities. If either of us, we'll have conversations. This is high pace throughout the week of things going back and forth. And sometimes there's passion to it, right? Because of the importance of what it is. I've always felt I always get respect from you. I always, even if it's a challenge or a pushback or something that needs change that you're bringing up, I've never felt disrespectful. But what I'll notice if we can be firing back and forth, and every once in a while, I don't know if it's every couple months, but there's been several times where we're firing back and forth because we're not seeing it from the same perspective. It's important that we mine the perspectives from both deals. So I need to hear you not be intimidated by my question, but you to be like, well, hey, here's a whole bunch of information that I think is helpful, and throw it back at me. And back and forth to say, okay, hey, I don't want to dismiss what I'm saying. I want to bring back, let's throw it all on the table. But if one of us goes silent for through the rest of the day, basically it's this cue of hey, we'll revisit this in the morning. Both of us could do that. We just exit stage left in this.
This happened, I don't know, this was a couple months ago. We had something where we weren't seeing eye to eye.
Not on the same perspective.
Going back. And then you were like, hey, we'll hit this Monday. And then I'm literally on my Mac, I shut it. And then Jamie's like, what? I'm like, Jeremy's mad at me. She's like, what? I'm like, he's shutting down. I said something. I don't know what it is, but dadgummit. And then she was like, you two are stupid.
And that's very true. That is very true.
I'm like, yeah. She's like, you're going to figure it out. But that's true.
Yeah.
And that, yeah.
And those are great times whether if one of us just says, hey, we just get off the carousel. Yes. Because we know, hey, this carousel's spinning too fast, or it's not. We're just going around. And because what happens, and that's helpful. Now it'd be weird if it was screw you, we'll let's meet Monday, right? If it was that type of deal. Right. Then, we got to recognize, okay, hey, right now it's fine. We can dip. Well, let's revisit.
Yes.
And if we did that with our spouses, to be able to say, instead of no, we have to decide right now who's winning this because we see this differently. We're both throwing it on the table. We're both passionate about finding an outcome, but we still see it differently. Instead of being like, I am so mad at you or you're dumb, be like, okay, hey, let's revisit.
One of the things that Jamie and I talk about, the whole idea of don't go to bed angry.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't mean don't go to bed with it unresolved. It's a big difference.
That's great.
So we will not. We are committed to that. And I can think of probably 2 times in my entire marriage that we've gone to bed angry with one another. But there have been so many times where something hasn't been resolved.
Yeah.
But we also understand that we're on the same team.
Yeah.
Right? This might not be resolved. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. I love you. Right? We're a team. We're a team. And so it might be in a working relationship as well, right? Anything that you find yourself in, understand that you're a team, right? If we're going to talk about it Monday or Tuesday, awesome, right? As long as what you're saying is not we'll talk about it Monday. Yeah. It's not that tone. But understanding listen, we can we can see that the written word is not working. We can see that this form of communication isn't working, and we're going to figure it out. We will, right? Let's just take a break from this. Let's revisit it. And I think that's such a healthy approach that I think that we get caught up in of like, we just got to solve it now. We got to solve it now. Yeah. Can't go to bed angry. Can't go to bed angry. It's like, well, you've only got limited hours, man.
If anxiety is in my mind, the urgency, anxiety brings with it urgency.
Yeah.
I need to address it now. So I need to win this conversation. And then I feel like my anxiety will disappear. In the moment, I feel like that's what's going to happen. That's not reality. Is now I'll have anxiety will have a different form, or I'll have regret, shame because of how I handled my anxiety. Yeah. So bottom line with some tools for me is when I'm anxious, I need to understand whatever I focus on will magnify. So, and it's not to avoid the issue, but just to look at it and say, what part of my attention right now does this issue need? And when because every issue demands all of it, whispers, look at me, feed me. But when I can look at it and then I can decide how much of this that I want to dedicate right now for, then I'm like, I don't need to. And that's what I learned if I go back in time 9 years ago, is there were some issues I needed to address. I needed to lead stronger as a pastor when it came to our financial situation. Mm-hmm. There were some things that we needed to find solutions for. But what I didn't need to do is stress about it when I went home. What I didn't need to do is think about it 90% of my week. If I would have dedicated 10% of my week to fixing that problem and given myself the other 90% of my week to being a healthy person, and it also... you whatever you focus on, you begin to magnify. And so then begin to, just have some gratitude. Just be thinking, okay, hey, end of the world, we could not resolve this and probably be all right. We'll figure this out. So just to be honest with your anxiety, acknowledge it, recognize it, give it the right size. So if I got anxiety because a car's honking and I'm in the middle of the road, I need to give it the right size of attention. And that might mean right now, drop everything and get out of here, right? And, but not everything's a honking car. But they all feel like a honking car. So anyway, I know that everyone who's joining us, listening to us, you've got some major anxiety. I would just encourage you, lean into it, be curious about it, acknowledge it, and then decide how much of today you want to give it to. And then don't let the emotions and the weight of that anxiety, don't let that bleed over into other areas. It's not working.
Yeah. And if you weren't able to catch the series as a whole, I do think it's helpful to go back and watch through those messages.
Too stressed to be blessed.
Can't wait to see that at Hobby Lobby.
That's going to be good. All right. Great. Hey, we'll be back next Monday probably.
I think so.
If the good Lord tarries.
His name's Terry? Or is that...
No. Did you not grow up like in my household? Because we said that all the time.
I didn't grow up in Manchester. I didn't.
I grew up in Idaho.
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what Terry means another time.
I like it.
All right, bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.